This is Robbie from Inner Power Life Coaching. And today I wanted to talk to you about how to identify and avoid predators. And as neurodivergent people, because we tend to be very trusting, we are often also very easy prey for predators in many different aspects of our interactions. So I kind of wanted to run through some of that today and give you an idea of what kind of predators you might be dealing with, as well as how to avoid being caught into their traps. So, the whole idea of a predator is an entity, an organism prowling around trying to find others, basically to have for lunch. Now, in normal human interaction, this is not obviously having you for lunch for the most part, but it is trying to exploit you in some way, possibly cause harm to you. Just find some way to suck your energy. And they don't ever have good intentions, okay? And they present themselves often as friends, really great employment opportunities, family members, social groups, religious or spiritual groups, sometimes friendly strangers, but their intention toward you is not what you may imagine that it is. And as neurodivergent people, we tend to think that other people have the same good intentions that we do, right? Because we tend to be honest, we assume that other people are going to be also, and this is not always the case. So, what do predators look like? They can be the abusive family member who has always been abusive. And when you deal with them, you get the same outcome. And for some of us, our family members have actually been abusers, physical and all other kinds of abusers. For some of us, it's very abusive, exploitive employers who do things illegal, or there's an environment of bullying. They could interview you saying you're going to do one job. When you get there, it's not like that. There's a lot of ways that can happen. We're all familiar with the predators online, the strangers who try to lure people to giving money or lure you to meeting a stranger in a place where they can then harm you. We're familiar with that kind of thing. But a lot of neurodivergent people also fall into that trap because they tend to try to trust people and think that that's not going to happen. I shouldn't have to say this to adults, but I do because it's still a thing. Don't meet a stranger somewhere by yourself, particularly if it's late at night or in a shady area. Abuse things happen to male and females, but particularly if you're a female, don't meet a dude in a place. Don't go home with a stranger from a bar, from someplace, especially if you're not going to tell somebody, because you honestly don't know what the intentions of people are. Please use common sense and protect yourself. Another common predatory structure is religious, spiritual, or social organizations that essentially function like cults. And people think of cults as being only like a religious thing, but it's basically any group of people that are coming together for a united purpose, whether it's a religious or spiritual experience or a social focus, but they have the same mindset and the same general intentions. However, cults focus by making you start to subjugate your own thoughts to the will of the group leaders or the group in general. And if you don't, you're wrong and you don't fit in. Or you can be told you're not respecting authority, you're not respecting the family, because family systems can be cults. You're not respecting God or the spiritual powers. Whatever the authority structure is, they will use that to impose upon you a sick and abusive system where they exploit you emotionally, spiritually, physically, a lot of other ways, sometimes monetarily, and you are left with no autonomy. And if you try to fight back, you're punished. These are all very predatory organizations, predatory structures. How do you, as a neurodivergent person, determine when you are possibly in the clutches of a predator? The first thing is our neurodivergent pattern recognition. Sometimes it takes a couple of rounds for us to get this, but if you deal with a person and you have the same thing happen with them, regardless of what you do, and it's always abusive or exploitive in some way, it's a pattern. It's because they are an abuser. They are a predator. It doesn't matter if it's a family member, a boss, a spiritual leader, some other authority leader in your social group, or somebody you look up to. If you are getting the same abusive patterns from this person, it is a pattern. There is a reason for it. We want to give people the benefit of the doubt, but when you see something recurring, that is who they are. That's what they're doing. That is what their intention is. You don't need to give them the benefit of the doubt over and over again for them to continue to victimize you. Once you've seen what they're doing, it's not a mistake. It's a pattern. It is an intention. Okay, recognize that. The second, and probably the most important, but can also be the hardest, is your own intuition. Does this feel off? Does this feel dangerous? And for some neurodivergent people, we may not be able to feel something in our bodies, or we may not be sure what our mind is saying emotionally, but you're going to have a general sense of something being wrong. And there's a reason for it, because we are given an innate sense of survival that prompts us in different ways when something is not right and it is a danger to us in some way. Listen to your intuition, to that instinct that tells you something is not right. And predators love to try to override this. They say, you know me, why don't you trust me? You're overreacting. Why are you paranoid? Nobody else acts like that. I haven't done anything to you. But see, all of these good things. See, I promised you this. See, the customer reviews. See, whatever. Or making fun of you, mocking you, that you're some kind of a way because you don't immediately trust them. If somebody ever bullies you or mocks you for not trusting them, that is the number one black flag screaming with sirens that they are a predator, that you need to have nothing to do with them. And it doesn't matter if it's a family member or some other authority figure or some nice stranger you met. If warning bells are going off in any way, whatever it is, however it is you sense that, there's a reason for it. If they're mocking you and trying to override your own sense of self-protection, they are a predator. That's all you need to know. You don't even have to stop and figure out why or how or what their motives. If it feels wrong and it feels dangerous and they're trying to bully you and coerce you, there is a reason why. And the way that predators operate, and if you're familiar with the narcissistic abuse terminology, they can operate with love bombing. This happens in romantic relationships where you're like the love of their life, and their most perfect thing, and then they turn. It can work in sick family systems where you're the favorite, or you're the one who's always been there. A lot of times they'll try to throw in how you owe them because they're family members. Abusive employers will exploit you and abuse you to the point you're ready to leave, and then kind of throw a bone of sort of being nice, almost kind of maybe to keep you not trusting your intuition that something's wrong. The same thing with religious, spiritual, social, cultural groups that work in the same way. They might use spiritual principles, ethnic or cultural paradigms, and shared experience as an excuse to draw you into things. There's a lot of different ways that it works, but the bottom line is they are trying to exploit your own sense of justice and your own sense of trying to be a nice person and give people the benefit of the doubt to make you question yourself. Because if they can get you to ignore the patterns and ignore the red flags and question yourself, then they can get you. And this is what they do. And as neurodivergent people, because we have so often been told we're wrong, or you're too sensitive, or that's not right. Nobody's like that. That's just you. Why are you being this way? Why can't you be a team player? Why can't you blah, 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 whatever? We're told we're wrong, and we're told not to be able to trust ourselves. We can default to thinking, well, maybe I'm wrong and I'm not being fair and they're a good person and maybe I'm not being right and I should just go along with it because that's the polite thing to do. And they're an authority figure and I have to do this. And they told me that God says I need to do this. And I'm going to get in trouble if I don't do this. And that kind of thing is what they do to you. When you start hearing this kind of language thrown out at you to make you do something that you have a visceral feeling is not right, you're not wrong. It's not right. And they're trying to override your intuition and your common sense and your own protective mechanism. You are not the wrong one here. Okay. The predator is wrong. The predator is always wrong. Understand that. What can you do to protect yourself from these predators? Like we were talking about a minute ago. First, pay attention to patterns. If this person has done it before, it's probably a problem. If you have seen this kind of thing from other people and a new person's trying to do it, probably the same pattern. If it makes you feel some way, it's probably dangerous. If they're trying to coerce you, guilt trip you into stuff, it's dangerous. The first thing you can do, the most important thing you can do is trust your intuition for all of this. And if you are a survivor of abuse, it can be very hard to trust your intuition because abusers teach you not to trust your intuition. This can take a lot of work. This is why peer coaching is helpful for severe cases. Work with a licensed therapist to help you trust yourself and your intuition can be very, very helpful. But that is your first point is listen to yourself for a minute and be like, does this feel right? Does this feel dangerous? If it does, you don't have to overthink it. Protect yourself. You are not ever a bad person for protecting yourself from danger. You don't have to get in the car with a stranger. You don't have to go to the place that's dangerous. You don't have to do the thing they're telling you that's wrong. You don't have to do this. Honor yourself. Trust your intuition. You're a smart person. You know how to take care of yourself. Trust that. In the end, all you have is you to protect you. Ultimately, you can have friends and family and law enforcement and these things, but your day-to-day safety, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually and physically, a lot depends on you being able to trust yourself and get out of the trap before you walk into it. Don't let them lure you in with anything that seems too good to be true, anything that makes you feel uncomfortable, anything that you know is dangerous. And predators can be very insidious. You can end up, like I've said, with the employers who tell you a bunch of stuff in the interview and what you do is absolutely nothing at all to do with what they told you, but you got into it because you needed the job. Or the date, you felt kind of off, but you were tired of being single and like, maybe I just need to kind of compromise and go with the flow. No, the social group that felt wrong, but you wanted friends, you wanted to fit in, so you kind of did. No, in the long run, it's not like that because what predators do is they get you in their snare, they get you in their trap, and eventually they eat you for lunch one way or the other. This is not something that you want to have to be a victim of. And for a lot of us, this has been a cycle our entire lives going through the same kind of thing of being exploited by all these different kinds of entities all of our lives because we tend to be very naive and be very afraid to set boundaries and to take care of ourselves. A lot of us, when we were kids, had boundaries. Now, if we had abusive adults, they might have physically overridden our boundaries, but we had enough in us to set them. And I've worked with a lot of autistic children who are young enough to be like, no. And it's not that they're throwing a temper tantrum, it's because they know this is not going to work. Find that part of you back in the day when you were a kid before people tried to override it that knew what was right and wrong for you and say, no, and stand in it. And is it hard? Yeah. Because you can lose relationships, you can have employers do things to you, you can be shut up by social groups. There's a lot of things that can happen, but the end result is if you put all that aside and go with the predator, you're going to end up losing anyway because they're going to take everything from you. And sometimes it can be absolutely devastatingly bad. If you stand in your power, your intuition, knowing what works for you and what doesn't, and what's right and what's wrong according to your standards, you have a much better chance of coming out on the other side with a lot less harm in the short term and the long term. It's hard. It's a hard thing to do to set boundaries and stay with them when you're getting competing voices and you have your internal voices telling you something is dangerous and then telling you, no, you need to adapt. As neurodivergent people, particularly if you've been through abusive situations, you have all of these competing things coming with you at once. I know. I've been there. If you would like to talk to somebody who has been there, who has learned different strategies over the many decades of understanding and dealing with this, I would love to work with you. I am not a licensed mental health care provider, even though I have a mental health background. What I do is working more on nervous system regulation, our internal belief system, and taking our power back to help us be able to manage bullies and manage these situations and go forward the way we want to and not how somebody else is driving it. And a lot of how we move forward is us understanding who we are, not what's been fed to us, not the limiting beliefs that have been put onto us, keeping us down, keeping us stuck in cycles of abuse. So I'm a late diagnosed ADHD individual. I know, I've been there, I understand so much of how all of this works for us in so many different situations. So I would love to connect with you. You can feel free to reach me at any of the links below or at my website, innerpoweredlifecoaching.com. My name is Robbie. I honor you. I respect you. I 100% believe in you, and I look forward to catching you in the next video. Bye.